Hey there! It's been a while since we've had an episode of the podcast. My bad. This was originally recorded in 2021, but projects, health stuff, and the holidays all posed as factors that made this come out way later than expected. I currently have a backlog of episodes that I'm trying to get out, and I want to stick of a better schedule of having one episode per month, with videos going forward being exclusive to coffee backers over on coffee.com/KashCast. The support will be appreciated, and the show will still be available publicly in audio form. I just need to lighten the load on myself. Nevertheless, this is still a good episode, even if some of the info and topics discussed are a bit outdated at this point. So sit back and listen. Thanks again for all the support, and now on with the show. Hey there, I am KashCast, and this is the KashCast, a laid-back animation-focused podcast where I interview artists, animators, and content creators about their work, life, and interests. This is an episode I've been looking forward to. With me, I have Marly Halpern-Graser, currently a writer and co-executive producer on HBO Max's Aquaman King of Atlantis. He's also worked on Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs, Thundercats Roar, and is one of the main people behind Disney XD Warner Bros. Animation's Right Now Kapow. I also have with me as a co-host one of my friends, Benzie Johnson Jr., who's a YouTuber who frequently discusses international television and children's live-action fare, but occasionally talks about kids' cartoons, U.S. and international based, between his occasional binge sessions between MTV's Catfish and Ridiculousness. We will both be asking questions and chiming in for this episode. So before we get started, as always, Marly and Benzie, if there's anything you'd like to add, please feel free.
No, that was a really good recommendation, introduction. And Right Now Kapow and Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs have definitely aired more widely internationally. So I think that qualifies as international children's television. Every episode of Yabba has aired in the rest of the world. The US has only gotten half of them so far.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was a thing, honestly. When I was talking to Talia in one of the previous episodes, like, I had no idea. Like, I had heard murmurs about Yabba for a while, but I was just like, this is a new show and Mark Maron's on it. Like, when's it coming out? But you know how that happened.
Yeah. No, I probably don't have anything to add that Talia didn't already say, but I'm excited that a lot of it is on HBO Max, and I have no reason to think the rest of it isn't on its way as some sort of a season 2 or season 1 part 2. I don't have any inside knowledge on that, but I don't know why they wouldn't release the rest of it. So there's some good. Right. We got if you like them, we got 12 more 11s, something like that. They've released half, so 13 more 11s.
Hey, worst comes to worst, we'll always start hashtag release the Yabba.
Yeah, right. Yeah, release. Restore the Merrick verse.
Oh man, this is a comedy podcast tonight.
Yeah. I mean, there's also there's a Henry and June pilot they tried to do where they had their whole own show that I don't think really got released. We could get that out there. You know what? Talia might have already done this, but you go to Mark Merrick's website, which is probably markmerrick.com. He has fully lost, unreleased episodes of Kablam just there that you can download.
Oh yeah, why not?
You should check him out. It's an amazing resource that should not be allowed, but it's there and it's been there forever. So no one cares, I guess.
Yeah, truly a man of the people. Of course. After this, we'll pivot into our usual order. When I was younger, and I also think I may have mentioned this to Talia, but when I was younger, I was hugely into this little very puny Kablam forum. I'm around 7th grade. I think think we might have like gotten like a text interview with Mark at some point, but I know we definitely just like constantly were just like lurking the website just to see like what the missing episodes. So when
Yeah,
one
yeah.
day
So
he just said like screw it and just like put all of it up, like I was binging all that stuff. You don't even
yeah,
know.
so it's just also it's just cool that he has an actual real website. It's not
Yeah,
on any social media, but he updates that website.
yeah, literal time capsule considering like everything's just like constructed in Flash. Like
Yeah, yeah.
when the whole
Well, hey, I mean,
thing. Oh yeah.
not to derail everything, but like so few shows, animated shows in America are still animated in Adobe Animate. It's called now, but it was Adobe Flash, and
Mhm.
it's shrunk so much that Mark is an important enough Adobe user that when they do new versions, they like directly ask him for feedback. Like they're like, "Hey
No
Mark,
way.
how do you like the new version? Working for you? Any notes?" Because he's like a significant portion of the animators still using it.
Literally like the high elder wizard of Macromedia Flash.
Mark single-handedly counts for 2% of the Adobe Animate users.
Yeah, exactly. I
Because
probably
everyone
nuts.
was turned off by the Creative Cloud crap.
yeah.
And it's hilarious because like when they first announced that, like they were doing away with Flash, I think like a bunch of just like any amount of just like animation adjacent nerds, it's like, oh shit, what's gonna happen to Mark's website? We were all thinking that.
It still works, right? I think I've been to it recently.
Oh, thank God for that. Because like if that was gonna go offline, like oh my God, like I got Flashpoint just for that.
Yeah, I guess I've never tried to look at Mark's website on my Apple phone. I guess I would never have been able to do that, I guess.
Right. But okay. Uh, this is a mysterious podcast. We're having too many last episodes here. But yes. Getting back on track. So first off, first question I want to ask. You've had quite the extensive resume, so I want to ask, how did you get started in the animation industry, and how did you end up working at WB Animation?
Oh boy. So I have I'll tell the shortest version of it, but I like to tell it because I have a very weird origin story that could never happen now. It's a real time capsule of pre-Great Recession Hollywood, which is, so I was in college, which is, so in like 2005, 2006, me and my friends were doing a lot of internet comedy when that was relatively new. So we were doing YouTube videos when no one cared if you were doing YouTube videos. So like it was the YouTube landscape back then was, we were like the 7th most subscribed comedy YouTube channel, but that meant we had 7,000 subscribers. Because that's what the stakes were at the time.
Yeah.
But like the number 3 most subscribed comedy YouTube channel was Derek Comedy, which was Donald Glover's troupe. So we were like in the same general like range. They had more, but like it was that's what things were like. Like we got YouTube used to have a front page where anyone who went to the website saw the same video, which obviously is very different than how it works now. So like we were on the front page a couple times, but that meant you got 1 million views. That was basically where it capped. Anyway, the point is, we were doing that. And so right as we graduated, there was this really small, really weird program at Warner Brothers that they called the Creative Lab. And what they did is they hired like 8 of me and 8 of my friends from Emerson College, a couple kids from NYU and a couple kids from Chapman. And they flew us to Burbank, put us in apartments. It was the Oakwood apartments. They're not called, it's called something else now. And they gave us rental cars and also paid us like a small but weekly salary. And they were like, we want you to help us figure out how to make and monetize internet comedy because you guys are the experts. And we spent a year doing that. And none of it worked. None of it went anywhere.
Oh, no.
Nobody wanted anything that we made. And basically the answer was, well, the way we made money doing YouTube videos is you hired us. I don't know how you're going to make money. That seems like a different problem. And I had been doing some really, really, really limited animations on my own where I didn't even know how to use Flash or After Effects. I was basically doing paper cutout, like popsicle stick style animations, but digitally. So, because I can't draw. So I would have my friend draw little guys, and then I'd bring them into Final Cut and use the Final Cut Pro like motion controls to make them bounce around. And that's what I was doing because I loved animation, but I can't draw. I used to do claymation stuff when I was like in high school and college because I can sculpt a little better than I could draw. But anyway, so I was into animation, like I was basically focusing on screenwriting and TV writing in college, and I was writing I wrote like a Futurama spec. I wrote an original animated spec pilot. Like everything I was focusing on kind of was animation, although I hadn't completely realized that. I still thought I was going to be in live action because that's just what everyone thinks they're going to do in film school. But in hindsight, I was gravitating towards animation. So while we were doing this weird program, me and one of my friends pitched a animated show. And we wanted to not be online, to be like a real TV show. And so they paid like 50,000. I think we had a budget of like $50,000. It was crazy to make a 5-minute animated pilot. And to make that, we teamed up with Warner Brothers Animation because they knew how to produce animation. And so in the process of doing that, we met some people at Warner Brothers Animation. And so after a year, when Warner Brothers realized that they had basically just like Dark Knight style set a warehouse full of money on fire, and that's basically what our program was. When they realized that and let us all go, I walked to famed, longtime, legendary animation writer-producer Alan Burnett's office because I had met him while doing our weird little pilot, and I gave him a big stack of every script I'd ever written. And I was like, well, I'm fired. Do you want these scripts? Goodbye forever. And you know, we were friendly. He would say hi whenever he'd see me in the office. It wasn't unreasonable for me to think maybe he would take a chance on me. And then I was unemployed for 3 or 4 months. And then I get a call saying, hey, Sam Register, the brand new head of Warner Brothers Animation, wants to meet with you. And I come in and him and Alan are there, and Sam's like, hey, Alan needs some help writing these Scooby-Doo and Tommy Jerry DVDs. You want to do that for a little while? And 13 years later, it's the only job I've ever had. I'm still at Warner Brothers Animation.
Aces. Yeah,
so not something anyone else can ever really replicate. Not only that, not something any of my peers replicated. Like, I'm the only person from that initial group to immediately get a job at Warner Brothers. Everyone else is doing cool things now, some of them even at Warner Brothers, but there was like more steps in the middle.
Right.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you can simulate the money being set on fire. Because more money has been set on fire nowadays than back in 2007, 2008.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. Streaming is certainly setting money on fire. I just feel like it's more targeted. Like, when they do it on streaming, they at least have an idea of why they're doing it. Like, our thing was so blue sky. Like, they just were like, it's the internet. There's got to be a reason to do this. Like around that same era is when Adult Swim did Super Deluxe the first time. And that was a similar kind of thing. They just gave people a lot of money to make really cool web series that no one really saw, and they had no real way to monetize, and they're awesome. But then it was too early. Like, it was the kind of stuff that would be on streaming now, but there was no streaming then.
Right.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers even do you know that Warner Brothers had a basically Hulu competitor called thewb.com, which had it had all of Friends and all of the OC and also original series. We were supposed to be making stuff for that, but the whole thing just collapsed on itself.
Back when we just gave away full episodes for free.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I mean, Hulu was free back then.
Yeah.
I remember they had like
I
all
used to be
YouTube
all over Hulu back in the day, watching like all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah. So no, you are definitely right. There is money being set on fire. So I guess that's my advice. Find someone with a big stack of money, bring a match, and be like, I can do this.
Hey, hello, Netflix.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I heard you'll give money to anyone that breathes. Can I get in on that?
See, I don't know though. I don't think I know, like, I don't think that's true anymore. I think you're right. There was a year when I think Netflix was doing that, but I I don't know. I know there's a lot of money being spent, but I do kind of think the gates are back up.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like,
it's getting kind of more competitive. To be fair, there's more people throwing money out there, but they're kind of there's probably a little bit of a wall coming up because the whole space is shifting right now.
Yeah.
To be fair, they're trying to figure out better where to throw the money.
Yeah, but you are definitely right though. There are more platforms than ever before. There's more TV shows being made than ever before.
Yeah, it definitely still feels like money is being thrown.
Yeah. No, you're definitely right. I think the days of the South Park joke of this is Netflix, you're greenlit is not completely true anymore.
Yeah.
Well, no, now it's just you get one season of like 6 episodes and then you die in the bottomless pit of Netflix.
Yeah.
You exist for about 1 second. That's it.
Yeah.
You're done.
I really saw like some show on like Paramount Plus, some adult anime show that literally got like canceled after 1 season, like today. And I'm like, I heard nobody talking about this. So like, the streaming landscape in of itself is just weird. And I think another thing I've noticed is, personally, because like I know some of my artist friends, and if you're listening, hi. But I know a lot of my artist friends are really interested because like HBO Max is trying to revive the cartoons thing, which I think they rebranded something else, but still doing the same of like, letting like, smaller artists, like try to like pitch a short. Yeah, but I haven't heard like anything about that since the rebrand. So it's like, come on, let my friends get jobs, Yeah.
That might be. I should know because I'm a Warner Media employee, but I think they're calling it. That might be what they're calling Cartoonstitute now.
I think they relaunched.
That's the name.
They used. Well, no, Cartoonstitute was one thing, but then they relaunched. They slapped the Cartoons name on a more recent shorts program that they're just getting off the ground.
Right. Oh yeah. You're right. It all blurs together. I think it's still happening. It sounded really cool.
Yeah.
I don't think the lack of. I think they're just processing pitches and deciding what to do and stuff. I think no inside information, even though theoretically my coworkers are running that project.
You're on the ground floor of the conglomerate, and they're all up on the.
I don't know anything about it. I forgot the name of it, is how little I know about it.
Things do not happen in the elevator.
Yeah. That is one weird thing about work from home is that I have less like casual interactions with other people who work at Warner Brothers because unless I have some reason to be on like a Zoom meeting with them, I don't see anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely like something. No, I'm speaking as a recent college graduate myself, but that's definitely something that I sorely miss some physical interactions because, like, I remember like having a class of like one of my close friends, but it felt hollow because, like, once I clicked off, it's like if we like unless you already have contact with these people, like other means like Discord or I guess you guys use Slack or whatever, it's like the. Being able to just like foster those like even just like casual friendships, like work appropriate ones, I imagine it's way more stressful or just like
it's just hard. It just happens less is all it is. Like there are a lot of Aquaman crew members who I either hung out with for like a month and then we switched to work from home, or I met for the first time at our little premiere party, and I'm definitely like friendly with all of them. I know who they are. I'd be excited to see them, but I'm sure we would like become better friends if we'd been in an office together for a year and a half, like we would have been normally.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. And I think like personally, like obviously none of this applies to me. Like it's going to take me like 3 to 5 years in order to see these people physically. But no, I can imagine, just like being able to like actually like foster like potential friendships because like I think it was like Charles Gavin, apologies if I'm getting the name wrong, but I think like he made this like interesting comment about like how harder it is to like navigating these like work relationships, especially when people are just getting like shifted from show to show, and like it's getting hard to like establish those ties. So because
Well, yeah, because one of the effects of streaming is that seasons are getting shorter. So
Yeah.
even if your show gets picked up and you do a bunch of seasons, you still probably have big hiatuses where you're doing some other show in the middle because the seasons aren't long enough to just keep you in production the whole time. I mean, it's different on different shows, but that's happening more often.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And it does stink because I really do think, I mean, this is probably true of most industries, but animation's the one I know. And I really do think the best way to like succeed in animation and build your career is by like building legitimate non-networky real relationships with your colleagues. And just getting to know people and getting to know who you like to work with and who likes working with you. And it not only helps you get job offers, but it also helps you decide what jobs you want to do, because you know the sorts of the people you like working with and the people that like foster a good environment. And so that's really important. And it's a little harder right now.
Before I segue into another bullet point, just so I can just like ask questions directly, especially in, like this sort of circumstance, would you have like any advice for like someone, like say my position, who like isn't there yet but wants to know like better ways in order to just like interact with people who are in the industry?
Yeah, I mean the good thing is that because I did technically come up in the internet age, although just barely. The good thing is my advice has never changed, even as things change around it. Which is all you can do is whether you're a writer or an artist or whatever you are, a director, an actor, it really doesn't matter. All you can do is make things on your own. If you can't do it all by yourself, then get people to help you. If you could do what I did, which is I just did the parts I'm bad at also. Like I can't really animate, but I tried to write a funny enough script that it was okay that it wasn't really animated, and that pretty much worked for me. So, however you can, make stuff on your own, put it out in the world so it's possible for people to find. It's definitely tough. Like algorithms are a little harder. It's not like the old days where if you just put that word cat in your tags on YouTube, you'd automatically get 40,000 views, which is how it used to work. But TikTok algorithms are really friendly. If you just post stuff there a lot, eventually people will see something probably. I mostly know that because of my younger brother. I'm too old for TikTok, but I've had it explained to me. Anyway, so make stuff, have it, put it out in the world, and then if you're a writer specifically, the other trick is you have to have a really, really strong writing sample ready to go. Because if someone sees your funny video or your great tweet or your wonderful TikTok, whatever it is that gets them to see you, that what they're going to say is, can you send me a writing sample? And if you say yes in 2 weeks, they know you're frantically writing it. So you want to have it already. Also, it takes more than 2 weeks to write a good writing sample. So, and that, that's really like, the way I got an in with an animation producer was sort of unique and not that useful to anyone else. But the only reason it worked is because I already had these scripts I had been working on for a long time. And I had spent a lot of time workshopping with my friends and getting notes and doing revisions. And they were like really polished. They were the best things. They were the best I could write at the time. I'd like to think I've improved, but that was the pinnacle of my writing at the time. And I had those ready to go. And you never know what your opportunity is going to be. So you have to be ready for it. It really is that's the mix of luck and hard work. Is the heart you need that luck of getting an opportunity to show your stuff to someone, and all you can do is just try a lot of stuff and hope you get that lucky opportunity. But that luck won't matter if you haven't done the hard work of having something to like back it up or show off, and be like, here's why this wasn't just luck, and you should be excited that you learned who I am, person who can hire me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the artist version of that is have a portfolio. And obviously, it's just a little easier because as an artist, you can basically be posting your portfolio online, and that can be the thing that gets you the opportunity. You can't really do that with writing. If you're just a person and you post a script, no one will read it. So you have to give them some reason to want to read your script specifically.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that was just like a huge info nugget. So thank you for that, genuinely. Let's see. going to
And
our
then-
second bullet. Oh, you were gonna say something?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
got
okay. All right, cool. So going to our second bullet. So personally, I associate you the most with Right Now Kapow. So if you were to describe the show, how would you do so, and what was it like working on that show?
Oh boy. Yeah. So, I mean, I also associate myself the most with Right Now Kapow. Right Now Kapow was a original animated sketch comedy show that I co-created with my friend Justin Becker, who was also in the money burning scheme with me. So we got him in eventually. Sometimes the good thing, here's the good thing about saying slightly inflammatory things on a podcast is the only reason anyone would be listening to this is if I've already gotten such an amazing opportunity that they're looking for something bad that I've said, which I feel like that means it's okay. No, it was a long time ago. Everyone who worked in the program was doing their best. Anyway, Justin did that with me. And, we were friends before. We stayed friends. We stayed working on stuff together. We did stuff in the program together, stuff before and after. Anyway, animated sketch comedy. It was officially 6 to 11 was the official age range. Our rating was Y7. We basically ignored that and pretty much we wrote completely child appropriate sketches basically for adults, I would say is basically what we did. And yeah, I mean, the premise of the show was that it was animated sketch comedy, but with a dedicated sketch troupe. So we cast 6 comedians to be all the voices. And we assigned each comedian a cartoon character design, basically a head. So like Betsy Sidaro had a plant, like a sort of a palm tree for a head. Michael Blakelock had a dog head. Kyle Kinane had an ice cream cone for a head. Baron Vaughn had a moon for a head. And the idea was every time these actors played a character in a sketch, we'd always use the head that went with that actor because we wanted you to know it was the same 6 actors playing all the characters. We wanted you to feel like even this is a sketch show, you're still seeing your friends every week. And part of the reason we did that is because me and Justin had both written on Mad, the Cartoon Network sketch show based on Mad Magazine. And, Mad was a really successful show. And it was, I got nominated for an Emmy writing for that.
Congrats.
We were like, our ratings were like second only to like Adventure Time for a while. Like we really, really was a hit show, but it always felt like even though our kids were watching it, there was nothing for them to get attached to and nothing for them to like return to. And like, for example, couldn't really sell merchandise because, they could sell Alfred E. Newman shirts or like Spy versus Spy shirts, but they were doing that anyway because of the magazine.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything. The show was not generating new reasons to buy a shirt. And not just for wanting to make money, but also like wanting the show to have an impact, wanting people to like it and want it in their lives. So we were trying to think like, okay, well, we want to do another sketch show because Mad was really successful for us. And we think we could have success being like, hey, did you like Mad? We wrote on that. We could do a sketch show. Which was basically our pitch. That's how we pitched Right Now Kapow, basically, is we went to Disney and we were like, would you like a show like Mad? We could kind of do that. And then proceeded to make a show not very much like Mad, which maybe was one of our downfalls. But anyway, but we were thinking what would make us excited to do another sketch show. And what we thought is like, well, when you watch Monty Python or when you watch Kids in the Hall or when you watch Key and Peele, yeah, it's new characters every sketch, but you like the actors and you know who they are and you're a fan of the actor. And maybe a character becomes a reoccurring thing, but mostly you're a fan of the actor. And we wanted to create that in animation. And this was our attempt to do it.
All right.
I think that was that's a really important thing to bring up because that's really what made Right Now Kapow so unique and give it so much potential because, we've had animated sketch comedy before, but, as you said, it's sort of, very singular sort of short things kind of strung together and just got compiled into, 22 minutes and say, oh, here's a show. Whereas, on a lot of live action fare, you've got actors playing characters. And so bringing that and translating that into animation was something that I don't think I've ever seen done before, and it certainly hasn't been done since. So really, it's just
I mean, I think the closest thing to what we were doing is really the Muppets, because like when Kermit's in Muppet Treasure Island, you still know it's Kermit. And we were kind of trying to create that, but they took sort of decades to get that buy-in from the audience, and we were trying to do it instantly. What I always said while we were producing the show, and it became unfortunately less and less of a joke as we went on, is I always said, I'm very confident no one has ever made a show like this before. We're going to find out if there was a reason for that.
Well, I don't blame you for that being less and less of a joke. I blame the network shutting it at 10 p.m. for that.
Oh yeah, like I feel like personally.
Let's talk about.
Oh yeah, we're gonna go on the schedule. Okay.
Oh, we're getting into the.
Oh yeah, because when I was outside.
I was outside. That pissed me off. Just that. I was like, just Right Now Kapow being dumped on like Monday nights at 10. It was so infuriating. And like I've really been a fan of Disney XD in general, at least up until everything crashed and burned over there in 2017. I've talked about that. I've talked about this, Cash. This is not new for you, but
wink.
But I've been, I was a really big fan of a lot of their output. Right Now Kapow included among their, illustrious, if somewhat short-lived pedigree. And so just sometimes they made just really awful moves with really great shows, whether it's burning things off like they did in that great Flame Out, or just really screwing over really well-deserving shows, including Right Now Kapow. So just... And 10 o'clock is just far too late for any show on kids TV to work, honestly, because there's just not.
Yeah, I know.
There's no audience there. There's just not. It's not built like that, especially not anymore, where prime time has been moving just earlier and earlier in kids TV.
I remember when
5 o'clock things, 6 o'clock things. They've only just moved back into 7 o'clock.
Honestly. Like when we were doing Mad, our time slot was usually like 8:15 or 8:30. So it'd be like Adventure Time. It'd be like Adventure Time at 8, regular show at 8:15, and then us at 8:30. And you would look at the ratings, and they would just drop every 15 minutes. And I'm like, some of this is bedtime. Like, I know, like Adventure Time and regular show are great shows, and some of it is that people are tuning in for them and then turning it off. But like some of this just attrition every 15 minutes is kids being told time for bed.
But also I feel like the networks themselves have really not necessarily tried to maintain that kind of a stronghold, especially as ratings across the board have splintered and there's, all sorts of new viewing options. They've, instead of really trying to fight for that turf, they've just sort of more resigned themselves to taking what they can get. And really, I think the only outlet that's really running anything in prime time is, Nickelodeon on Saturday nights still, and Disney Channel on Friday and Sunday. So, and that's all live action stuff. So like it's just been,
we definitely, Right Now Kapow definitely premiered at a time when they knew the old model wasn't working anymore, and they didn't know what the new model was going to be. Because they fully expected the ratings on the actual channel to not be so great, because that was just the reality of the channel. And I think at the time they were hoping they could move those viewers to their website that had the full episodes if you had a cable login.
Yes.
I really wish I
knew
the
less about that, the better.
Yeah. Like, I'll say personally, from my experience watching the show, I think around that time when it was still showing on the channel, I was like one of the immediate people I knew that was actually watching the show. And it was like kind of frustrating because, like, as someone who sadly knows about and discusses cartoons on Twitter, you either fall into two camps with shows. You're either praised or you're despised. And it sucked that I heard nothing about Kapow. And it was like, it's not even like, oh, the show is great or the show is horrible. It was just like, people weren't watching it, and I liked it, and I could barely watch it. I think I saw like one marathon and like one premiere. I didn't even know about the cable login at that time, and that was it. And eventually I just like didn't see on the channel anymore, and it's a shame. And I think when this podcast idea was originally supposed to be a scripted review, I was legit gonna. I will just be completely transparent. I have dove into like the deepest digital caves in order to find actual footage, and surprisingly, it's not there. I bought like an episode on Google Play to see if I could rip it. No, it's just not there. So it's really...
you can. Hey, you can buy it on iTunes. That's how I watch it.
Oh yeah. But for real, you know, it really does suck, because I feel like, if like more people were just able to like upload clips easier, you know, just like it could have some of a second life. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, you know, I truly do not know how the rights work between Disney and Warner Brothers. I know that the kind of license that Disney had is not forever. And one day the rights will be fully with Warner Brothers. And I would like to think that when that day comes, it'll get quietly shuffled onto HBO Max, and then maybe people can find it. But again, no inside information about the chances of that happening. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Again, given what I said earlier, heavy emphasis on maybe. That word is doing like 800% of the work.
Yeah. But I really no idea about that. I mean, you know, after Right Now Kapow, one of my, almost my next project, I sort of wrote Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles while Right Now Kapow was winding down. And so then the next thing I did was Thundercats Roar with Victor Courtwright, and he had just come from doing Pickle and Peanut. So we definitely bonded over having like fought in the Disney XD trenches.
and yeah.
It's all coming together. Oh my god!
It's all coming together. I'm not gonna say how I feel about Pickle and Peanut, but
I mean, I'll say this much. I think this might have been like a couple years ago, but I think it's actually hilarious because like Batman vs TMNT was always just like its own thing, but I just found it hilarious how they actually got away with showing it on Nicktoons, if memory serves correctly, which, it's a kids channel. It's very much not rated kid friendly.
Oh yeah, there's at least one pretty explicit decapitation in that movie. Yeah. A guy gets a ninja star right in the brain and then definitely dies.
Yes. Like, oh my god. Oh man.
Yeah, it was funny because the movie was always rated PG-13, and Warner Brothers Animation's PG-13s go pretty hard, light on the swearing, hard on the violence, is our PG-13 our philosophy. And it was funny because we did get notes knowing that it was going to be on TV at some point that we're like, okay, but don't go completely crazy because we do need to be able to put this on TV also. It's not only going to be on DVD.
Yeah, that is fair. I remember when I was younger, I think like the closest connection I have to that, around like Toonami's 10th anniversary, they were showing a bunch of miscellaneous movies, and one was like a direct DVD thing, The Condor by the late Stan Lee, and that was like bordering on TV-14, but like this was like still when Toonami was on Cartoon Network. Like, supposed to remember between the realistic violence and then just like one throwaway scene of a girl just like showing her chest to like a throwaway character. My mom was like, "No, you're not watching this. You're not watching this." Oh man.
Yeah, the Toonami stuff was always more adult. The line between Toonami and Adult Swim has always been a little blurry to me.
Oh yeah, they legit, like, I think around that time they legit just had like, I remember like the last bump they had was just like transition straight into whatever first Adult Swim shows they had. They just announced like Futurama or Venture Brothers or whatever.
Yeah.
And hey, like these days, like, maybe movie ratings are just always going to be weird on Cartoon Network because they're literally like going to be showing the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Oh my god. Oh, this is like a perfect thing to laugh at with Ben's, but that little movie block they have was hilarious because like they have like their preschool block, and then they were showing the Star Wars prequels with that scene. So it's like,
oh, what are they doing over there? See it?
Yeah, I think
I'm invested in finding out content, but
hey, that's not a tangent. Aquaman, King of Atlantis, is going to be part of that block at some point.
Oh yeah. I was actually like
that's
excited.
That's announced. That's announced. I can say that at some point we're going to show Aquaman as part of Acme Block. I mean, it's going to be great.
Oh yeah, so it's perfect segue.
Great.
For real, like I actually like found it interesting because like I hadn't like yeah, and I get it for listeners. It's more like television discussion than like animation discussion. But hey, this is a Benzie episode, so you know.
Yeah, this is a me episode, so anything television is basically fair game.
But I always like found it interesting because like I again like armchair animation fan brain here, but I didn't like I thought like the rules would be like a little bit different in concerning like shows made for streaming coming on TV, but like when Jellystone dropped on CN, you know, that was like a shocker to me. So like I'm guessing, you know, like I mean it's all Warner Media anyway. So
yeah. No, I mean I can
presume that it's the same conglomerate and there's like relatively the same, like there's different windows, but like, you know, if it's the same conglomerate, you can. I
don't feel like I'm speaking out of turn by saying that like what the ratings mean for us don't change by the platform. So like if it's PG, that's PG by the whole company's standards. If it's Y7, that's Y7 by the whole company's standards.
Yeah.
So like, you know, Aquaman King of Atlantis was PG, so Cartoon Network can air it anywhere they'd be comfortable airing a PG thing because we're all being held to the same rating standards.
Yeah. And I was actually like pretty excited about that. I think like a couple days ago I actually like finished part 2, and I'll just definitely say this. Guilty as charged. Roar basically just like flew by me, but the couple clips I did see I did like. But I really think like this was the next step, you know, just like for everyone involved. You know, I feel like the art style is like more refined, but like obviously just having like that loose, like, you know, just like fun vibe to it. You know, really being able to like go to like some really nice sequences. The colors are great, and I think it's like, and again, if I'm sounding like armchair, feel free to like let me know like what I'm actually talking about. But I think it was like pretty interesting because like the way you balance between like progressing like through the plot while also like having like enough air to breathe to have like jokes, not just like small jokes either. Like you lay the seeds like something. You know, like the whole like baseball bat joke in like part 1. You like the lay the seeds like one thing like in the beginning, and it actually comes into like, you know, a pretty decent point like towards like the act 3 or whatever. I always like stuff like that. That's good stuff. But no, I'm really enjoying.
Well, I mean, it's different with different things. Writing takes all different routes to get there. But I can tell you with something like that baseball thing, that was a case of the original pitch always had a throwaway line about Mara wanting to beat someone with a water baseball bat, and then a line about like she just learned about land sports and she's excited. And that one line everyone just liked so much that we were like, oh, we should do another baseball joke and another, and it just built. So like, it just built from there. It's like when we wrote the first reference to it, we didn't know it was going to be like the main running joke of the episode. We just really liked it. So we kept throwing in more. And then, so like, I probably wrote the first one. And then like when, Victor wrote the outlines with me. So like Victor threw some more in when he did the outline. And then I threw some more in when I wrote the script. And then Keith, the director, threw some more in because he liked it too. And by the end of it, you've got what and then the that sequence at the end when Mara does finally hit Piotr Mordakov with the water baseball bat, I'm sure, it was definitely written in the script by the time I wrote it that she did that. But like that amazing shot of there being a little fish in the baseball bat and it like kissing his cheek as it slams his face across the wall. That was 100% Drew Applegate who boarded that scene. So it's just like everybody's just adding and adding and adding to it. And that's the great thing about animation is when it's working, it just gets better at every step. Like especially like for Aquaman, like me and Victor wrote all the outlines, but two of my favorite animation writers, Brian Condon, who wrote on Right Now Kapow, and Laura Sribney, who wrote on Thundercats and also She-Ra, Princesses of Power. they wrote the scripts for episodes 2 and 3. So it's like, you know, you write the outline, then a writer comes in and writes the script and it gets even better. And then the board artists come in and do the boards and it gets even better. And then you bring the actors to come in and do the real performance and it gets even better. And then you ship it off to Korea and an amazing animation studio does the actual animation. It gets even better. And it just every step of the way is better than what you started with, which is, when it's working, the most rewarding part of animation. And to what you were saying earlier about it feeling like sort of the next step from Thundercats Roar, I would definitely completely agree with that. And that's not a knock on Thundercats Roar at all, which I'm very, very proud of. It's what it really is it's two things. It's that Aquaman, because of being 3 45-minute specials, we had a little more time and a little bit more money per minute. Which just let us put even more love into it and build it out even more and make it even more amazing. But also part of it is, and this is something I didn't completely realize until I really started working in animation, is because Aquaman has a similar art style to Thundercats. It's not identical. I know what the differences are, but I also know that the differences are not necessarily noticeable to other people. But because Aquaman has a similar animation style to Thundercats, certainly, and because we used an animation studio in Korea, IM Studio, that worked on Thundercats, we didn't have to reinvent the pipeline. Like, in a lot of ways, Aquaman had all the benefits that a season 2 of Thundercats would have had. Like, Thundercats also would have looked better if we had gotten to make another season. Like, you just get better at making a show as you go. You get more efficient, you get better at it, you get better at communicating. And by keeping the animation style in the same world, we were able to take all those benefits and put it onto a new show. And I think that a lot of times when creators have a spin-off show or another show, sometimes it can be a little disappointing that it looks just like their other one. And some of that is marketability. Some of that is you want people to know that Central Park is made by the same people who make Bob's Burgers and that Great North is made by the same people who make Bob's Burgers, and the visual style just signifies that. But I really do think a lot of it is, once you've got a pipeline working, you don't want to change it. They're so hard to build. It's so hard to make. It's so hard to get an animation pipeline working right that you'd have to be crazy to blow it up for no reason. You would need a really good reason to not just keep it going, because it's really hard to do. So I think people outside animation discount how much of animation styles is just built on, like, we know how to do this. We know we can do this right. We know we can do it well and like efficiently. And if we start completely from scratch, we'll be starting completely from scratch, and who knows what'll happen.
Yeah, everything truly is like a learning experience. And I feel like, you know, I'll definitely be interested in like anything in the future also like has this pipeline, because I feel like, you know, shows like Roar, like Aquaman, you know, have this like, again, with an artist's eye, just spitballing. But it really just has like a more organic thing, you know, similar to like KO. You know, like you can just like tell, like, you know, certain artists, like individual quirks are just like in a scene or, you know, in this like a certain sequence, like what you mentioned earlier with the bat, you know, and it really just embodies animation. And I feel like, especially with Aquaman, you know, there is like a better balance between, you know, like having the action, having the comedy. Obviously, no diss towards comedy. I love to laugh, but I feel like both in Aquaman are just equally as solid. So it's not like an imbalance. And I just really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say something about something you said before that, and then I forget. It's fine. It probably wasn't important. I got distracted by the compliment. Thank you.
No problem. In fact, like, as I check my bullets, because like me, like I always like to follow a set rule set or whatever, but we've just been like cruising through stuff like almost on schedule, and like I've only had to like check my notes like once or twice. So this is like, perfect.
I am real good at talking. One of my main strengths. Actually, not writing, not number one strength. Number one strength, talking. Number two strength, writing the things I said down.
Okay.
Maybe you could have been a content creator in another life.
Okay, so here's a formal question that I have. So I remember reading an article on Cartoon Brew saying that a writer from live action TV insisted young writers don't know their roots in terms of TV history. And you said basically that it pays to know the roots, but also older writers should be interested in what younger people can bring to the table. Do you mind elaborating on why it's important to embrace different backgrounds and perspectives and their impact on writing good material?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think how to elaborate. I mean, I did a pretty good tweet thread about it, so check it out. But also, yeah. I guess all I'm saying is that like it feels to me that and I think the problem is that sometimes people are hiring younger writers only because they don't have the money to hire people who have a lot of experience, and that's unfortunate because I think you should be excited to hire younger writers, and you should be feel lucky that you have them. And I guess the thing is, you know, I was pretty young when I got my first staff writing job. I was like 23 when I started working on Mad. So I sort of had this experience of being significantly younger than most of my coworkers. And it just felt like, yeah, there were like old shows and references that I didn't get because I like wasn't alive when those things came out. And I do have a feeling of like, oh, I should check that out. Oh, I should watch this. I should learn like the things I don't know. I do want to learn. And so it seems weird to me that older people don't recognize that goes both ways. And if there's newer media that you don't know and your younger writer does, you should want to know about that. And you should be excited that someone has brought to you a cultural reference that must be important to someone because they have it, and you don't know it. And also, I mean, the thing I was responding to was someone being like upset that younger writers like didn't know specific episodes of old television. And so part of what I was saying was like, yeah, I do think if you're going to be a TV writer, especially, there's a lot of value in knowing and watching some of the famous episodes of the famous shows. But I think that if you are a showrunner and you think it's important that people have seen these specific episodes because like, you know, that you reference them a lot, or you know that like, oh, your personal shorthand is to say like, oh, like that thing in MASH. And I think that's really valid and a perfectly good way to be. Just you have to show it to them then. You have to take a day and be like, what we're doing today is watching 5 foundational episodes of sitcoms that I personally think are really important. Even if you don't think they're amazing, I just need you to know what I'm talking about because I'm going to reference them a lot. And I just think that should be part of your job as a supervisor. If there are things like that, like if you're going to be annoyed that someone hasn't seen the finale of Cheers, you show it to him then, because you can't expect someone to have seen that necessarily. But hey, if you want to watch every single episode of Cheers, I just did that. It's great.
I was about to say, hey, is that a vertical integration plug I smell?
No, definitely not. Cheers is like not a Warner Brothers show. That would be Friends. I would have said, you know what? I would have said Big Bang Theory if I really wanted to plug HBO Max.
Yeah, no, and you can watch insert program here on HBO Max.
Yeah, exactly. No, I did not do that. Oh, you know the one to watch on HBO Max is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's all on there. Check it the hell out. It holds up.
Oh man, when you're mentioning
is a story all about how we turned an executive boardroom upside down.
When you're mentioning that, like watching everything episodes, like the whole thing Ben said about like being a content creator in your past life, whatever, I'm just saying, like Quinn Reviews like literally just has a monopoly of just like watching like every single episode, stuff like iCarly or Victorious or whatever, just like really digging deep. Like, hey, like I'm just saying, Ben's like technically he's on your territory with like Nick sitcom. So
hey, yeah, definitely, maybe, yeah. I'd have to really eke out my space, but certainly, I think more towards what Marly was saying. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of sort of generational bias where sort of newer things are discounted, and even as a content creator myself, I've really more grown up with a lot of the 2010 stuff being more my forte rather than say 2000s fare or 90s fare that's so hailed in the cartoon space, and so having to sort of kind of make my own case for those sorts of things.
What's your favorite 20 teens show?
Oh my gosh.
Here we go.
Probably
bonus episode.
bonus episode.
I'm just interested because that's the era I was working in, and so like I know what things I think are cool, but I was an adult, so it's not like I was watching everything.
I am partial to two shows actually, particularly Breadwinners and Sanjay and Craig from Nickelodeon. Right in the mid 2010s. Just Breadwinners. I've talked about in sort of a rebuttal to I've been meaning to talk about it at length in detail, but I have said some of it in sort of a rebuttal to sort of a bad faith take. But like the world building and the amount they invested into really fleshing out that world into something that's really creative and really expansive and that has a lot of potential is something that kind of gets lost in sort of the, it being derided for like, the humor it had or whatever.
Hey, you don't got to tell me. Gary Doodles and Steve Boris worked on Mad with me. They're my friends. I think I love Breadwinners.
Well then.
Hey, he's a perfect guest.
It all connects.
Yeah, Breadwinners was great.
Let's get the board out. Let's get the cork board
what
out.
I love about Breadwinners is that they did the old like silly symphonies, merry melodies, Looney Tunes thing of setting the whole cartoon to music, but with modern music. Like they didn't actually copy silly symphonies. They just took that philosophy and did it. And the music was like as much a part of the show as the art and the writing and the voice acting. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, they really did an amazing job at like really building a very unique aesthetic that took a lot of influences and just really made it their own and really crafted something that I'm not sure we're going to see again in animation, kids TV, whatever, for a very long time.
I'll be really excited. I mean, sooner or later, Gary's going to do another big project in his style because it's amazing and he has to. And I'm really excited for whatever that's going to end up being.
Oh yeah, like honestly, that's like something that I can like relate to because like when you're a kid, just like growing up with cartoons, you end up like going down like one of two paths. You're either like someone who just like likes cartoons, or you're weird like me who actually like looks at the credits. So you end up like actually paying attention to like people's work over time. And like when you see someone who's like signature like writing style or just like art style, you want to keep up with that. A lot of I will be honest, a lot of the reason that I've kept up with Warner Bros. Animation, especially stuff like including an Aftermath, was because of the fact that I knew Mark Merrick was working on that stuff. And Mark Merrick is like one of my favorite creators because of his work on Kablam. So I'm like, oh, he's working on that? Yeah, I know. It can't be like anything less than 7 out of 10. It's gotta be.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, Mark was running the art side of Mad. Mark helped us out on Right Now Kapow. He was a producer on Right Now Kapow. He boarded a lot of sketches directly for us. Yabba I did with Mark. Like, I was also really into Kablam and really into Henry and June. And the fact that so much of my career has been working directly with one of my, heroes, Mark Merrick, has been a truly an honor.
Yeah, I can imagine, honestly. And just like a side thing, you mentioned Bryan Crandon earlier, and if I remember correctly, when this is like years before I actually like started my whole quote unquote YouTube journey, but I remember like finding a board for like a Right Now Kapow sketch that like he wrote, but I think like Mark boarded because it was on his website. And feel free, because I very vaguely remember it, but I have a feeling like if anyone would remember, it would probably be like one of the people who helped make the show. So it was the coconut lady who was like a school teacher or whatever, like in the classroom. And I think like the Moon character was like a posh kid, and he just had a bunch of like hound dogs. And
yeah. I know that sketch. Of course I know that sketch. Also, the fully animated version of that is one of the ones that is on YouTube, I think.
Oh, thank God.
I am 100% sure you can find the actual animation of that one. Yeah, Bryan Condon wrote that. Mark boarded it, and so he put the boards on his website. That's an amazing sketch. That's so it's Moonhead, voiced by Baron Vaughn, doing his best little posh boy. One of his many. Here's the thing, Baron Vaughn. Oh boy, he's someone who he's in Right Now. I knew him from stand-up comedy in like Boston and New York, because I used to do live comedy. And so I knew Baron from that. And then, he's such a good actor, and he was in Right Now Kapow with us. He was Donatello in Batman versus Ninja Turtles. Like he's someone who I have not been able to cast in every single thing I've worked on, but it's a regret every time because I would love to cast Baron in everything I've ever worked on. And he's so good as that little boy. But yeah, it's this sketch where they're voting on a class field trip. Yeah. And the premise of the sketch is the teacher is like, all right, so we have a tiebreaker. We've got like 5 votes for planetarium, 5 votes for nature walk, and 1 vote for fox hunting. And whoever voted for fox hunting, whoever that might be, if he would please just change his vote so we could make a decision. And then you pan over to this little kid in riding gear sitting on his horse being like, well, we will never know who that little boy may be, but maybe we should reconsider this fox hunting. Why not? And then it just goes from there, and it's a really, really great sketch. I really love
it. For sure, and I mean that in the best way, obviously. And I think this will probably be my obviously, unless you have more to say, because I love talking about Right Now Kapow, but I feel like my personal final tangent, and just to tie this back to a previous episode, did you want to elaborate on the sketch that Asterios helped write, the math magician?
Oh, I mean, he did at least 3 sketches for us, certainly 2. Elaborate on the math magician. No, I've listened to that episode. Asterios described it right. I mean, the only thing I can elaborate is just how Asterios got involved, which is, so we had 3 staff writers on the show, which was Steve Clemens, Brian Condon, and Josie Campbell. But we had money set aside to reach out to freelance writers to write like a couple sketches for us. And we did is we reached out to a lot of our like favorite comedians that we were fans of. So a lot of people who had written for Onion News Net, like the Onion News Network videos, people who'd been doing stuff like that. They were like kind of like as an excuse to email them being like, hey, we're comedy writers. You should want to know who we are. Here's some money. And Asterios, I also used to do. Asterios is a little different because we used to do comedy with Asterios back in Boston and then out in LA. And we were really excited to be able to ask him to write a few sketches for us. And yeah, I think Math Magician is definitely the standout of the ones. And also, I think the one that most stars a character he obviously would have played in one of his normal sketches. Like the Math Magician, like Kyle Kinane did it in the show and it was amazing. But like, if you read those lines in Asterios' voice, it works. Like you can, like,
yeah, exactly.
It's an Asterios style character for sure.
God, like I've got to find it, but I literally like end up like redrawing one of those screencasts like for it to look like Asterios. But no,
yeah, I mean, that was the idea. That was the thing is like, because we had like 500 sketches or whatever, and 90% of them were written by the same. Mostly 3 people, and then me. The part of the weird thing about producing animation is it's hard to have time to also write the animation. So because me and Justin were also overseeing, we are not artists, but we still had to oversee and approve all of the art and go to every meeting and all the post production and sound recording, and like there's just so many meetings and things to approve when you're show running an animated show that like, as much as, I am a comedy writer, I love writing sketches. So little of the sketches in Right Now Kapow were initially conceived of and written by me. Almost all of them were initially like, we would do our punch ups. And if like I had an idea for a line, I could put it in, which is the fun part about being in charge. But most of the sketches were originally like conceived of and written by our 3 staff writers. And so we definitely wanted to strategically use our freelance money to get some other voices in there and some other tones and mix it up. So you hopefully wouldn't notice that 3 very tired people had written every single one of the sketches on this show.
And honestly, I think that's something that like I honestly like find interesting, is because of the fact that you guys like reach out to people who like don't normally have roots in TV animation or to get like a fresh perspective on things. I think that's just like really interesting. I don't know if like other shows tend to do that, and like feel free to like correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, I think every show is different. I mean, I think it was the same thing with the actors too. Like, you know, a few of the actors we cast had done some cartoons before because they're good at it, but we cast them because we were fans of them as live performers. Like, everybody that we cast was someone that we were aware of as a stage performer, and we just we really wanted that energy. Like, we wanted it. We really wanted to write the kind of sketch show we would write for a stage or for live action, and then animate it. And I don't think that's the right approach for all cartoons. It's probably not even the right approach for most cartoons. You know, something like no, I mean, seriously, like something like Thundercats or Aquaman that really is a cartoon first, and it lives and breathes and dies as a cartoon, and it's the only form this could ever take, I think is great. And I love being able, as a writer, I love being able to work on cartoons like that, because I could never do that myself. But for better or worse, the idea of Right Now Kapow was to really merge a sort of live action stage sketch sensibility with animation, and have that like confluence of things. We knew those were disparate. We knew those weren't the same thing. We were going to try to smush them together.
Right.
I think that really sort of shone through in the execution and how everything played out, and it's really going to go up there in one of those, you know, right up there with one of those, you know, in those few shows that really try and sort of merge two different kinds of formats, right up there with your total drama, or your one of the anthologies that CN's made or whatever. Just one of those things that really marries, you know, very, very unusual concepts that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see in animation with animation. And I think I think as a viewer and as a person who's interested in television, I think that's a really interesting angle and a really interesting claim to stake. And I think that you should be proud of being able to really carve out that angle, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. No, I mean, I really am. I mean, the thing about here's the pitch I'll make for trying to create your own completely unique animated show that is just could only be made by you. A, you get paid more if you create the show. So that's the first reason to do it. But the second reason to do it is that if you make a show that really truly is what you wanted to make and that nobody else ever could have made, obviously I don't love that it wasn't successful, but it's not like it tarnishes my feelings about the show. I'm just so incredibly proud of it. I'm so incredibly happy that I did it. Proud of everybody who worked on it. Grateful for everybody who worked on it. I mean, also, you know, especially in animation, when I'm a writer, like the show would not exist without all of the people who worked on it and did such an amazing job. We had, you know, such great artists and directors and actors and everybody. And I think sometimes if you take a job that's a little more of an assignment and then it's not that successful, there could be this feeling of like, why'd I do that? But if you do something that's like completely you, they can't take that away. Like we made it, it's there. Exactly. Continuing I have a version of the money burning joke for Right Now Kapow, which is I don't think of it as a failed TV show. I think of it as a really successful heist, because we just took, you know, it wasn't a big budget show, but animation is expensive. You know, we took millions of dollars and gave it to our favorite artists. And we successfully did that. It was split up among a lot of people. No one person got $1 million, but all together.
Definitely. There are definitely worse ways to steal money from a conglomerate. You know,
Ocean's Kapow.
Ocean's Kapow. So,
at the very least, it goes down in the record books, in the annals of history, in the kids' TV canon, and that's really important. Even if it only is like a Wikipedia link on a list of programs broadcast by Disney XD for some people.
Yeah, if you're clicking through every show ever on Disney XD, we're on there. We're on that list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll definitely say
there are some people who will be, you know, really inspired to really seek it out and to really bring it up again.
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing about it, and you know, I mean,
it exists. And that's the beautiful part.
The cool thing about it, and we're experiencing this right now, is when I do meet someone who has seen it, it's really cool.
And I'll definitely say this, you know, I really think that like as time progresses, like more people are eventually gonna find Kapow because like some of the other stuff we've mentioned, like Pickle and Peanut, like Breadwinners, I don't think we directly mentioned it, but like Sanjay and Craig, people who like grew up with that stuff or just appreciate in general are beginning to like speak out more and just like show their appreciation.
Yeah.
So I'm actually really looking forward to all of these shows really just like being able to like get like a second chance, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is like I know as a kid I had no conception of what shows were successful or not. Like It was a surprise to me sometimes to learn that shows I really liked had only really had one season and didn't really do that well because I didn't care. I liked it.
Yeah.
And that is one cool thing about your audience being kids is they don't know about that stuff. And if they like it, they just like it. And it's the same to them as all the other stuff they like.
Yeah.
And then there's people like us who dive into the ratings and dive into all the math and science behind television.
Well, I mean that really happened with Mad. Like when we were actually making Mad, it was the adults on Twitter, the adults on YouTube and stuff didn't like it. Like everyone liked Adventure Time and regular show. Nobody really liked Mad. But there was this weird Mad. There was a Mad wiki that had tons and tons. It was super well researched. They kept track of every sketch we ever did, every character we ever used, how many times like we used Mario, like how many times we referenced iCarly. They would just track all of that. And then also in like the comment section of that, there would just be like 100, I truly believe, actual small children just guessing the parodies they thought would be in the next week's episode. And that was really cool. But then also now that all those kids are older, like when some old Mad sketch does get posted on like Twitter or something now, all the comments are people being like, oh man, I watched that when I was 10. I love this show. Yeah. And it's really cool because we weren't really getting that when it was actually on.
Yeah. The nostalgia doesn't work from our perspective unless the executives come calling. Yeah. One day the nostalgia will come to the 2010s.
Yeah.
And while Nickelodeon is selling me a Sway Sway hat, I hope, I sincerely hope that Warner Media Discovery comes calling and says, "Hey, you want to make another season for HBO Max?"
Yeah, we could do it. Oh, but I mean, we even have. I said this on Twitter. I mean, it's not really. I don't know. It's not a secret. Who cares? We have an hour. We have an hour of unreleased Right Now Kapow sketches that we're going to be in season 2.
Oh, man.
We don't even need them to. All we need is like $30,000 to do the audio mixing. And then we'd have an extra hour of Right Now Kapow.
Jesus Christ. So I guess we do got to rally up that hashtag, huh?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't crowdfund it because I don't own it. Warner Brothers would have to want to do it, but
right.
It is there. Yeah, we thought we were so clever banking extra sketches. We were like, season 2 is going to be so easy. And then it was. It was really easy. We didn't even have to do it. They were like, no, don't even worry about it. And we're like, okay, that is really easy.
But yeah, I will just say, and especially just like coming from someone who was like, what, in like 6th or 7th grade, when like Mad was just like airing on Cartoon Network, and it was my shit back then. Like I didn't mind between like a story-driven show or a comedy cartoon. I liked almost everything. So yeah, it's just been great. To just
I liked all those shows. I liked Adventure Time and regular show, and I liked what we were doing on Mad. But I liked Robotomy. I liked Secret Mountain Fort Awesome. I liked Uncle Grandpa.
About them. No one talks
Robotomy.
About them.
Robotomy was really good. It was freaking Super Jail for Children. And it was on television. There was, people who turned their Adventure Time is the best show of that era. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But people who turned their TVs off afterwards were missing out.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. It really was like a blinking Minnesota show. Like, I liked it. Just like, like on a playground, you have like the Adventure Time kids, you had the regular show kids, and, you had me.
And that's who we were making shows for.
Yeah. But yeah, this has been great. Do you want to pivot into some Q&A stuff?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. So
I'll try to have I'll try to have concise answers.
Yes.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
You're right to not believe me.
But I will say,
I know because I did a 2-hour episode with Cash. So
yeah, it was Ben's one of my first guests.
No, I know. I mean, I'm gonna, I'll plug it at the end, but I have a podcast that my uncles listen to, and every episode we're like, are we even gonna have anything to say about this one? And then 2 hours.
But yeah, I will say, in case like, I will say, just in case like any of the questions, like touch on like stuff we might have already discussed, I don't have to go like as in detail. But that,
yeah.
Say, okay,
that sounds great.
All right. So, first one from Talia Pepper. Hi, Talia.
Hey. Hi,
Marly.
Hi, Talia. Talia has to listen to see if we answer her question.
All according to plan.
All going according to plan.
But yes, Talia's question is, here's a cue for you. Whether you're in a leadership position or not, what are some ways to foster good morale at work in a genuine way?
Okay, well, I would say if you're not in a leadership position, I mean, it's good to have a good attitude, but it's definitely not your job to foster good morale in the whole show. So don't put that. Don't put. Try to be a pleasant person, but also if you're in a bad mood, you don't have to talk to anybody. You could just do your job and keep to yourself. That's allowed. So definitely don't put that self on yourself if you're not in a supervisory position. But if you are in a supervisory position, and so then morale is part of your job, I don't know. I mean, the easiest thing is like the best way to keep a morale is don't stress people out. Like, try to make sure the schedules are doable. Try to make sure the atmosphere and the tone of the workplace is friendly. Like, the best way to keep people happy is don't make them unhappy. Is the easiest thing to do. But as far as trying to like actively keep morale up, I would say the biggest thing is like, if you're, and this advice is for not, if you are a showrunner, if you're the executive producer or whatever, the head of the show, it is important. Like, you're going to have ups and downs, and you're going to have disappointments, and there's going to be times when you are unhappy with what's happening on the show. And I think it's important that you mostly keep that to yourself or the other producers or the other studio heads. And that if you go into every meeting with like, oh, everything's falling apart and the show's not good and the studio doesn't like it and everything's late, even though everybody probably knows all those things are happening, like, you can't have that attitude. You have to be like, all right, team, we're going to do it. And here's our plan. And we're not going to, no one's going to have to kill themselves, but here's how we're going to fix the stuff. And show's going to be great. And I think that's important. I think if the people at top basically are like in a bad mood, everyone ends up in a bad mood.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you foster, just like a level of like, assuredness, like confidence, and that like inspires like everyone else to just like, not only like trust you, but like trust the work that they are capable of. At least I imagine.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I mean, working in animation at all is stressful because it's a high stakes, high pressure environment. Unfortunately, we try our best to make it nice, but there's some inevitable pressure. And running a show is just even more pressure because you're at the top of it. And basically what I would say is you are going to be stressed out, and you are going to need to talk about that with people. And you should talk about that with a therapist or other people who run other shows, or just your friends who don't work in animation. But try not to like unload all of that on the people who are essentially your employees, because it's not their job to help you.
Right. But yeah, that was a great nugget. Let's see. Okay. My cringe side asks, question. I noticed you, Marly, have been for WB for a long time at this point. How's your relationship with Warner Brothers like?
Oh, so great. Just more Marly and Warner Brothers, 1,000 years, marlyandwarnerbrothers.com, forever and ever. It's you and me, Marly, Warner Brothers, having adventures. No, I mean, it's great. It's a really good environment. I really like the executives. I really like my coworkers. I get to, when we go back in the office, I get to walk the halls of some of my animation heroes who still work there, which is amazing. Bruce Timm, we used to just be down the hall. I would see him taking his smoke breaks. So like, how cool is that?
This is just like something that like I've noticed myself, just like managing the show. Obviously, I'm glad for any guest that comes on here, but I think like at least like 75% of them have like come from Warner Brothers Animation at this point.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think it's kind of a domino effect because like I see like Talia and like Kareen, and I'm like, well, I want to do that. It looks so much fun.
Do I win free toaster? The next guest I get.
Yeah.
It's just a conglomerate punch card.
Yeah.
Get 10 guests on for a conglomerate, and you get a free.
Yeah, but you got to hurry because we're gonna switch conglomerates. It's Warner Media right now. It's gonna be Warner Discovery pretty soon. Yeah. It's gonna be they're gonna issue a new punch card.
Yeah, when do you get on the guy that's 90 Day Fiance? But yeah, I think it's I still think it's like really super wild to think that like some of the people that you might look up to in your dream career are not necessarily as far away as you think they are, and just sort of just even you painting that picture of Bruce Timm just chilling out like out taking a smoke break is insane to me as a layman. It's insane to me. I've gotten to know a couple of people who like actually do television things. I know there's another animation staffer. I know a British guy who writes like quiz shows and other stuff like that. And we've gotten close in a way that I wouldn't necessarily think that professional people would necessarily be. But then it's really cool to have that kind of a conversation and to sort of pass by these people and like digitally on the street, as it were, and know that you have a rapport with.
Yeah, I mean, I mean that's been day one for me. I mean, Alan Burnett, who hired me initially, I mean, in addition to being like one of the producer story editors of Batman the Animated Series on the writing side, which obviously is a huge deal, he wrote the DuckTales movie, which is awesome. And also, when I told him that I was a fan of the DuckTales movie, he was like, "Why? Why would you like that?"
hey, that's the right 2-hour video to say, not the guy who made it.
Yeah,
not the guy who made the movie.
Yeah, he also he worked on SWAT Cats. And there was for a while there was a fan petition to try to reboot SWAT Cats, and like when they would get in touch with Alan, he'd be like, "Leave me alone! I don't want to do
that." Call me back when the executives are pushing me into it.
Yeah.
Call me back when
I got one more.
There's $7 million riding on it for the
exactly. I mean, you're talking about. I mean, if you're talking about 2010s versus like 2000s or 90s, but a lot of my stories are from my coworkers who were working in animation in the 80s. Wow. So like my other favorite Alan story is just I was talking to him because he also wrote on Smurfs, and I was like, "What was that like?" I watched Smurfs, and he was like, "That got me up to a pack a day."
No way! Oh my god!
I mean, to be fair, the '80s was a bit of a rough time for a lot of the. When you think of the way that we think about animated content and kids TV now, that sort of the whole ideal wasn't even there in the '80s. Like, well, I mean, just the fact, like, there was, just the fact, like, happened since. So,
I think I did a tweet about this a while ago, but like, people talk about like, I don't know, like animation, like reboots and remakes and how like, oh, it's all like soulless cash grabs, which by the way, I really don't like the term cash grab because all television is an attempt to make cash. So it seems weird to me to make a distinction between, I don't think these people are trying to make money in a way I like, and these people are trying to make money in a way I don't like. Because everyone's trying to, the studio wants all of the shows to make money.
Speaking of someone who used the term, like I'm of course aware of that and like aware of things work, but there's sort of it's kind of implied that it's perceived to be an easier bet creatively to not go through the whole process of building an original concept up and just sort of taking whatever you have off the shelf and throwing it back out onto people rather than
I mean,
taking the risk and sort of it is ultimately the same money being expended when you still have to go through the process of actually making the thing, but from a conceptual standpoint, where a lot of the critical viewing public stays, that there's not necessarily a lot of deep knowledge and insight into like it's actually the same process for the most part. But from the sort of the creative standpoint, it feels less creatively morally strong, morally honest. It feels more noble to give someone the opportunity to put out an original concept into the world than it appears to just churn out a bunch of reboots of things 30 years old.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I'm a very big fan of original content. I've done as much original stuff as I've been able. I also really like adapting stuff. But what I'm saying is, regardless of the definition of the word cash grab, which I guess I probably opened it up to a larger, more complicated conversation. But when people talk about animation being especially in that era right now, I think we're really forgetting that in like the 70s and 80s, they made a Gilligan's Island cartoon show where Gilligan goes to space. Like, they made a cartoon where Fonzie from the Happy Days has a time machine. Like, cartoons were weird and like, they've always been weird, and people have always just been trying to do whatever they think will stick. And honestly, they've always thought something they already know is the most likely thing to stick. I mean, even if you go to like, one of the greatest original animated TV shows of all times is The Flintstones, and it's just the Honeymooners.
Yeah. Sort of setting the tone for kind of adapting, maybe something that we more often see in live action to an animated context, just
definitely
beginning the pedigree that you would then continue several decades later.
I just think I think it's a little bit of the more things change, the more they stay the same situation. And I agree that there's good. I agree that there's good and bad. I just don't know that I think it's all that different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's definitely questions of nuance, and especially with more players when it comes to who's actually making content, there's definitely more of an opportunity to really dredge through these things. And again, online content discussion is in its prime right now. And
it's
really
over
the past 5-10 years. So we now not only are we aware of all these things happening, we have the tools to discuss them and bring a lot of laymen and a lot of people who are at varying degrees of actually understanding the inner workings into the discussion. And so there's a lot more awareness now than there might have been sort of in the past. And especially because a lot of us are sort of, younger folks who may not necessarily be so familiar with, how things were, in say the 70s or the 80s. Per se, unless there's there are real enthusiasts who really work into the history, and I really appreciate.
Yeah, I mean that kind of goes back to my thing about you can't expect young people to know all of your cultural references. Yeah, which I agree with.
Yeah,
I mean, I agree with that. I guess the thing that I wish people were more aware of is that, like for example, I don't know if you were on Twitter today, but you may have noticed that they announced a revival of X-Men the Animated Series.
Yeah, X-Men 97.
Yeah, so if you noticed, when they did that, every single action animation writer in the world responded, "Oh shoot, I wish I could write on this." And that comes from a lot of people have a legitimate, genuine desire to work on versions of their favorite thing. And even though the opportunity to do that is because studios obviously think it's a good way to try to make money, but there are no shortage of people that very deeply want to do that. And there's no shortage of people where these projects are coming from a very genuine place of creative drive. And it's obviously, I wish that there were just as many opportunities for the people with a very genuine drive to create original content, because I would like to see all of these shows. But I guess that's the only thing is making a show is too hard to do it if you don't care about it. And so almost nobody does that.
Yeah.
Every now and then you get someone, writing Smurfs and smoking a pack a day. But I think that especially in this day and age, that is the minority. And I think most people working in animation are able to find a show that they at least were excited about the idea of, even if maybe afterwards they're like, I didn't like doing that at all.
Yeah,
but like they did it because they did it because they thought it was going to be really cool.
Yeah, right. Definitely. I've definitely grown into sort of the belief that no one wants to make a bad show, obviously. And even when shows come out that execute poorly or that don't necessarily work in perhaps the way that might have been hoped for or intended, there's not. You can only lay the blame on the product, really. You can't necessarily. And I've been tiptoeing around my response to Thundercats Roar because I may have staked quite a claim on a very popular video. Even though I wasn't as bad in dissecting it as a lot. I've seen a lot of other takes on it, but
I mean, you couldn't be the worst because there was a lot of actual Nazis in the mix.
yeah. That was a mess. I caught a trend and it worked for me, but that whole moment was a mess. And I've been wondering, do I apologize to you for contributing to that? But
Howard Stern on y'all.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll tell you the good news. The hate on Thundercats was so massive. I have not actually read every single one. If you ever said anything bad about Right Now Kapow or Mad or but really anything else I ever worked on, I probably saw it. But Thundercats, it was too much, so I had to stop.
But yeah, no one comes into any of these creative projects willing to make a bad show or wanting to make a bad show rather. And so you kind of have to understand that there's a lot of good intention and a lot of good faith from the people.
I mean,
it might not execute well. It might not be received well.
I would also, the other thing I would add, and you can't necessarily I've also been, people. Yeah, the other thing I would also add, and I've also been tiptoeing around this stuff because, I don't like to get into it too much because it doesn't do anybody any good. But I would also throw out there for the animation discourse community, in addition to everything you just said, also making a bad cartoon show, not a crime.
Yes, also correct.
Also, even the people who have made a bad show, not criminals. So calm down, everybody.
Yeah, I will definitely say... and sometimes it's okay to like a quote unquote bad show. And I am speaking as someone who has been working on a whole review / retrospective of a show that the internet hated and lasted for 6.5 hours just because no one else, me and like 5 to 7 people, no one else on the internet is going to argue about it in good faith. So I figured, hey, why not?
Oh, Can you tease it? Can you tell what's the show?
Oh, it was Magical Girl Friendship Squad. It was on Sci-Fi.
It was on
Sci-Fi. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I think I watched some of that.
Yeah. Like, for any of our listeners who are listening, if you donate any amount on coffee, you can see a minute preview right now. Wink, wink.
Wink, nudge, nudge.
They should get on that.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, like I'll definitely.
I agree.
But no, it's definitely like, interesting to just like think about. Again, like this like blossomed to like, its own like bonus episode. But
I can. One thing I can say, because you said that that from your perspective, there wasn't anyone saying anything good or bad about Right Now Kapow. They just weren't talking about it. But let me tell you, I found the people saying bad things about it. And that one was interesting. It was completely different than the like reboot remake conversation we're having now. It's part of the reason why the reboot remake backlash took me completely by surprise. I'll admit, I knew about the sort of weirdness around Teen Titans Go, but to me that felt so specific to that show that I just didn't think that would ever happen to anybody else. I obviously have more sympathy now for my good friends who work on Teen Titans Go.
Less said the better, but that show has its own troubles.
Yeah, so that's its own thing, and I literally friends with everyone who works on it. So anyway, the reason it took me completely by surprise is because when we announced Right Now Kapow, it was obviously a small response for the most part. People just didn't notice, but the response it got, especially on Cartoon Brew, because Twitter animation discourse was less back then, so it wasn't really being talked about on Twitter at all. But that we announced our show at kind of the height of industry professionals really paying attention to Cartoon Brew, which I think has waned a little bit. Sorry, Cartoon Brew, but we were announced at the peak of that, and when it was announced on Cartoon Brew, so many people were upset that it was original. And so many people were like, Warner Brothers and Disney coming together and it's not Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny hanging out and being friends? What the hell? Yeah. Or people being like, because like the sort of what? Yeah, so the sort of the like milestone of our show was that it was the first collaboration between Disney and Warner Brothers since Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And when they started saying that, I remember being like, don't tell people that. That is not what I want to be compared to. Like, we're just trying to be, we're just trying to come on after Future Worm. We're not trying to be, we're not trying to be the next coming of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But I think that's what people wanted. People were like, oh, this should have a bigger budget. This should be a bigger deal. This should be a monumentous IP-laden extravaganza because it's Warner Brothers and Disney come together. And so because of that, you know, I'll tell you, after Right Now Kapow, when they were like, hey, do you want to work on Thundercats Roar? I was like, oh, good, a normal one, a nice, normal cartoon that no one will have any problems with. That was my reaction. Because I was like, I was like, oh, Right Now Kapow was a weird thing that no one wanted. I better play it safe next time.
No, you stepped right into the most critically reviled show.
So I mean, the joke that I had during Right Now Kapow, and I don't think this is true anymore. I think this is not the tone on animation. But as someone who was a professional then, I can tell you, the discourse at the time back then was not, we're all sick of reboots, we're sick of remakes, stop doing this. The discourse at the time, the way I described it was, it would be like if they had announced The American Office, and instead of people just saying this isn't as good as the British Office, which, you know, some people said, it would be like if instead people said, why isn't this new episodes of I Love Lucy with the original cast all the age they were in the 50s? Because that's basically what they were saying. Like, you would announce a new cartoon and they'd be like, why didn't Bob Clampett direct this? I'm like, because he's dead. You're right. Tex Avery was more talented than me. What do you want me to do about that? And I think that's because I think at the time animation discourse really was dominated by people whose like formative stuff was the old theatrical cartoons being rerun on TV in like the 60s and 70s and 80s. And that's what everyone was comparing everything to. And you can't compare TV animation to stuff that was made for adults with big budgets to play in theaters. Like, there's a reason Looney Tunes is so good. And it's that it was more like, you can't compare Looney Tunes to a TV show. You got to compare Looney Tunes to a Pixar movie. Like, that was the amount of resources that was being put into it. And Looney Tunes even was low budget compared to the Disney ones, but they're better because they're scrappier. And I love Warner Brothers.
You gotta lovingly caress the hand that feeds you.
Hey, here's the thing about Looney Tunes. Nothing in the world is funnier than Mel Blanc yelling so loud he breaks character voice, and it's just real Mel Blanc yelling.
Yes. Oh my god!
And I can praise another one of my coworkers who I adore. One of the things that's so great about Eric Bauza, who does Bugs Bunny now on the new Looney Tunes cartoons, is he doesn't just mimic Bugs Bunny; he mimics Mel Blanc breaking character.
Oh my god!
Like when Bowser yells, he does Mel Blanc's real yell. It's so good. He's so talented. Canada's greatest star, Eric Bauza.
I mean, Canada's greatest star.
Greatest star.
I'm not sure
Nope.
I would agree.
Take that,
I think there's
William
a lot
Shatner.
of great talent up there, but definitely Eric has been involved in some great projects over the years.
Yeah, and I like him better than Mike Myers. That's all I'm saying. Eric Bauza.
I mean, if we're gonna appreciate Eric Bauza, I mean, yes, we'll go there. Eric Bauza appreciation post.
Oh man.
Yeah, he does not need us to do this for him. He's so beloved. He's doing great.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is a beef of an episode. But yes, we could like do like a 2-for-1, and we can just like discuss we can just discuss the questions and like however. So question 1 comes from Gary Mutant Astronaut. He says Aquaman has been the subject of a lot of comedy, whether it's outright parody or just a lighter tone in general. What do you think it is about his character that lends stuff to comedic outing so well? And incog_M says, how is it working on Mad, and was it an easy or hard task to maintain the spirit of Mad?
Okay. I mean, for Mad, I would probably say we've pretty much talked about that. And generally, I would say that it was easy to maintain the tone because there was just so much Mad Magazine. It was pretty easy to just read a ton of them and to just absorb the syntax and the language and just be like, 100 people have written for the magazine. I can be the 101st person to do this kind of sketch. Yeah. The hard part is just actually being funny. That's what's hard. Which is what I would say about Mad. I mean, the hardest thing about Mad was that for the main parodies, you couldn't just have a bunch of jokes about Iron Man. You also had to think, and we'll call it Iron Bland. And you needed both. It wasn't getting approved unless you came up with the pun. So I would say the puns were the hardest part of Mad. As far as Aquaman,
maybe you should call me for a mad.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
I'm pretty good with puns.
It was literally half the job.
Hey, I'll sell for Warner Brothers Discovery to throw money at me.
And then for Aquaman, I do have a theory about that. I think it is that every single superhero went through a goofy phase in the 50s. And for a lot of them, we collectively decided that goofy phase was a mistake and we didn't mean it. And here's the serious version of them. And then I think for characters like Batman or even Wonder Woman, and honestly, even a little bit Superman, I think for the most part that worked. And people are like, yeah, you're right. Normal Batman is serious. And we can do Brave and the Bold, but we recognize that that's different than normal Batman. Like people's baseline Batman is serious, even if they, like me, enjoy a comedic Batman. And I think with Aquaman, that same process happened. He got goofy in the 50s, like everybody did. And then when they tried, and because they certainly have tried to be like, no, that was a mistake. Here's the serious Aquaman. I think those things work. I like the Peter David Aquaman comics. I like some of the modern Aquaman comics a lot. Obviously, I think the James Wan Aquaman movie is really cool and bonkers and colorful and weird in ways that I think people who haven't seen it can't even imagine. And you should see it because it's a crazy movie. I wouldn't even say it's a super serious movie. I would say it's a great adaptation of how Aquaman comics are. But I think there are large portions of the audience that when presented with, no, this is serious Aquaman, they go, nah, I know that guy. He's silly. And it just didn't click. There's a lot of for whatever reason, the goofy version of Aquaman that everybody had a goofy version, his stuck with people. And I think a lot of people kind of prefer it. I think there are people who don't like Aquaman because they think he's silly, and I think they're cowards. And I think there are a lot of Aquamans that are into it. They're into that. Like for me, I like that he rides a seahorse. I like that his sidekick is an octopus who plays the drums. Like I like that he talks to fish. It's cool. If you take that away from him, he's just super strong. And there's a lot of guys who are super strong. Like, they talk about like, well, he can survive in the depth of the ocean. So can all of them. Superman could do that. Wonder Woman could do that. Like, you got to give him something no one else has. And it's commanding the beasts of the sea. It's cool, but it is also a little inherently silly. So I that's what I think. I think that all the DC superheroes, especially because they're so old, they're all from the 30s and 40s. Like, the other thing is, like, the Aquaman comics in the 40s, the Golden Age ones, were meant to be taken seriously. They just seem kind of goofy because they're so old. But that's the case with Batman. That's the case with Superman. Anything that old. Wonder Woman used to ride a kangaroo. And it was great, and she should do it again, and everyone's cowards. But they were called kangas, but they were kangaroos. So, like, I just think for whatever reason,
give your conglomerate ideas.
I'm trying to give them ideas. Please, are you listening? Let us do Wonder Woman, Princess of Themyscira. We'll do it. But I'll call it Paradise Island because I like that name better. Anyway, I think that for whatever reason, the goofy version of Aquaman has really stuck with people. I think some of it is because of like comedians doing kind of mean jokes about Aquaman, which I think are funny, but I also think color it in a weird way. Also, just those Cartoon Network bumpers they used to do. Not actual Super Friends, where I don't actually think he was any sillier than anyone else. It's the Cartoon Network re-edits of Super Friends that I think gave people the idea that Aquaman was useless outside of the water. Because he wasn't. They would find things for him to do. But everyone remembers that bumper where it's like, Batman, get to the Batmobile. Wonder Woman, get to your jet. Aquaman, go talk to some fish. And like, it's funny. So it sticks with you, but then you think that's real and you think that that's what he's actually like. And he's not, he's cool. I like Aquaman.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, because like, I'm someone who like, I would never say like I like hate like any superhero, but I don't have like nearly as much of an attachment to Aquaman as like someone to say like like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. But I still find myself like really enjoying Aquaman King of Atlantis. So if that's any consolation, obviously I'm not a diehard, but if that's any consolation, like I think the way you portrayed the character was great because it wasn't like laughing at his expense, just like knowing who he is. Like, yeah, he can, like, you can laugh like. It's not like laughing at him like to belittle him, just like laughing at him because like no, he does something funny, but he still gets like more enough time to shine as like an actual capable fighter, a loyal friend, a loving husband to Mara, etc., etc. So yeah, it's all about striking a balance.
Yeah, I think a big thing that we did is we did the jokes about like people thinking it was weird that he talked to fish. We did the jokes about people like not taking him seriously because he's like brand new to being King of Atlantis. And I think I think you're right that one of the biggest ways we tried to balance it was he was basically unstoppable in combat. Like, he has trouble in chapter 2, but that's because the guy's moving too fast. Like if he had punched him, the guy'd be dead. Like Aquaman is so. We just made our Aquaman so strong that it's like, yeah, fucking laugh at him because he's gonna get you.
But like I'll just say this much, unless there are any other like lingering tangents, this has been a great, definitely content-packed episode. Not gonna lie. I will say this, if you have like anything that you want to plug, anything that we can look out for you in the future, feel free to say so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Marly HG. A lot of your questions came from my Twitter threads. So if you want to see those ahead of time before someone asks me about them on a podcast, and then I actually just started a podcast with my little brother, younger brother. I've realized it's weird to say little brother when you're both adults and he's taller than me. But my younger brother, which is, it's called Hero Rewatch, which is the Twitter is at Hero Rewatch, and it's on all the podcast platforms I've heard of. And the premise of our podcast is my brother is 12 years younger than me. So we're really into comics and everything in general, but we really were a Marvel household growing up.
Yeah.
I'm into DC now because I've been working at Warner Brothers for 13 years, and that's gotten me really into DC. And I've gone back and read all the comics. Like, I'm an expert now because I do a lot of being a writer is being a researcher, and I've done all the research and I've read all the comics, and you can't do that and not become a fan.
I can agree with that.
And I was a fan of obviously I was a fan of the cartoons. Like that, I was really a DC cartoon fan and a Marvel comic fan, which works out because I work on DC cartoons. So that's actually worked out great. But so the premise of our podcast is we're going through and rewatching the Marvel Studios movies in order and talking about how they hold up. And what makes us different than the other 1,000 podcasts doing that is that Iron Man came out a little over 12 years ago. And so me and Austin are 12 years apart in age. So he's the age I was when Iron Man came out. And so the idea is to be like, oh, now you're such a different age than you were. We're in such different parts of our lives. How does it seem to you now? And that's what we've been doing. And we've gotten up to Avengers, and then we did a bonus episode about Superman the movie.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. I feel like the generational thing is just like super interesting inherently, honestly. It's part of why I enjoy talking to people here.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we thought could make it worth people's time, and it's been fun. And the other thing is, like, even though we're both really, I mean, I'm just repeating to you the intro of our podcast now, but that's fine. Even though we're both really big fans of these movies and we talk about them on the phone all the time, because he lives on the East Coast, I live on the West Coast. He was very young when I moved to the West Coast, so like a huge amount of our relationship has been talking on the phone about Marvel movies, but for whatever reason, we're both the kind of people that don't rewatch movies at all very much. So a lot of these movies I haven't seen since they came out, even though they're like my favorite movies. So it's been fun. It's been fun to go back and revisit them. They really, some of them are more different than I remember than I would have thought. Like I've guessed wrong a bunch about which movies have aged differently and stuff. It's been cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same way with shows. Like I'm not terribly even inclined to watch reruns. So like, yeah, I can definitely agree with like that sort of, it's, something like Breadwinner is like really close to my heart and like one of my favorite shows, but also I haven't watched it since the finale. So
yeah.
I watched an episode of Right Now Kapow last night to sort of prep myself for being here tonight. And it's like the first time I've seen that show in several years. So
yeah, it's funny.
Help to the network.
Yeah, I know. I'm not really sure what the psychology is because I do it with everything, like rereading novels, replaying video games. I so rarely do it. But when I do, I'm always like, oh, this is great. I am getting new things. I didn't remember all of it. Why don't I do this all the time? And they continue to never do it. And I'm not totally sure why I can't. It's so hard for me to remember that rewatching and replaying things is actually fun. I did just replay Final Fantasy VII for the first time in like 20 years, but for the like 15th time, because that's probably the game I've played the most in my life. It's great. Final Fantasy VII, still good.
Oh yeah, of course. But yeah,
that's going to go on game Twitter somewhere.
But yeah, so in terms of projects, obviously, check out Aquaman King of the Lands on HBO Max. It's going to come on Acme Night soon.
It's currently streaming on HBO Max. It'll be on Acme Night at some point, and I'll be tweeting about it. So follow that Twitter. And then, it's animation. So the stuff I'm working on right now, I can't talk about, and will be out in 2 years.
Okay.
Hey, nature of the cycle.
Yep.
Hey, very likely we will still be here. So just like I said to Jeff, if you're ever interested in coming back, feel free.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, see, I mean, he had a big day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's gonna be fun to edit and post because like he couldn't tell me what he was doing.
That is fair. You should have just talked to him 1 week later.
Yeah. I wish I could have, but like this is like something that like. Yeah, now I know why.
Yeah, well, you won't have that with me. I promise I have no big announcements for next week, except possibly when Aquaman comes out on Acme Night. Maybe that'll know.
Yeah. Well, that might be a good time to like schedule its release, but now I'm just thinking out loud. Ben, do you have anything you want to plug before we go out?
Just my usual spiel for the most part. I'm Benzie Johnson Jr. I'm enthusiastic about television, and I have a YouTube channel where I talk about all sorts of things about television, domestic and international fare, all of the technical nitty-gritties as much as I can get into. Just all sorts of things, honestly. I'd get into any tangent I possibly can because I just love the topic so much and there's so much to explore, and I've loved it for all my life. And next week's video, I'm talking about your conglomerate, Marly, and I'm not necessarily... It's about spin-offs, and it's with none of the nuance I just told you an hour ago.
All right. Well, I probably won't watch it.
Well, no.
If we're being honest,
I do try and be. I'm talking about more like this, like how does this fit into the strategy and sort of my bias towards original fare. What does this mean? What do I feel they should be doing? Stuff like that.
No, it's not. It's actually I basically just avoid all YouTube animation discourse. Unfortunately, that's my thing. I guess that's my thing. I should I guess that's my thing. I should apologize to you, which is I basically am not involved. I don't engage in any of that or watch any of that.
Sometimes that is honestly fair.
Sometimes the kids who eat space can be downright awful. So,
but I like podcasts,
and you can, you can also support me. I've got a Patreon. I've got YouTube memberships. You can get all those details at benzj.tk/join. benzj.tk/join for all the details. I have a website. It's kind of cool. It's kind of basic, but hey. It exists. That's the important part, like we were saying.
Yes. Websites are great. Everyone should have a website. I've actually never had a website because back when everyone had websites, I was like a Luddite who didn't know how the internet worked. And then no one had websites. And then no one had websites anymore. But websites are great. I recommend it. I wish I had one.
I'll definitely look into it. Like, obviously, I gotta have a portfolio. But if, like, if it would be, like, more organized, like, have one just, like, me in general, all my content endeavors, I'll look into that for sure.
And also the good thing about having a website is it's really easy to have like a password protected portfolio. Like once you do start working and you're working on stuff that you're not allowed to share publicly, the way you can show that you did it is by having that like a video of your work that's locked away that only people you want to see can see it.
Yeah,
of course.
And having your own website helps with that. So that's especially for art. That's a helpful thing.
All right, and for me, And for me, so I do YouTube, obviously. Like I had previously said, I'm currently working on this huge Match of Girlfriendship Squad retrospective. Literally been working on it for a year at this point. If you want to support the show, like donate any sort of amount, you can get like a 9-minute preview. It's looking like it'll be an hour long, so that's a pretty decent amount.
Godspeed, Cash.
Thank you.
Godspeed.
Thank you. Godspeed to like everyone who's helped me out.
I have an hour-long video potentially on the way very soon, and I can't imagine even making it, much less putting it out. So
yeah, Marly, we're in the trenches on a regular basis.
Oh, you think creating a cartoon is rough? An hour-long YouTube video.
Hey,
I don't the process and all the.
I literally do not know because back in my YouTube days, 10 minutes was the limit.
Oh,
you could not upload a video longer than 10 minutes when I was a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Okay, but think of that times 6, and it's one guy.
Yeah,
and you have to also have other things in your life.
Yeah, the hardest part of
and
any.
The bar is like yay high.
Yeah. I mean, I will say the hardest part of any creative endeavor is that you also have to have the rest of your life.
Yes.
That it never gets to be the only thing you do. You also have to feed yourself and see people and make money and do things.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think we can everyone doing anything creative, even if it's a medium you're not familiar with, I think we can all appreciate how hard it is that we also have to be alive in this world.
Yes, absolutely.
The one creative solidarity thing we all agree on.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's hard to be alive.
Yes.
Sure words will never be spoken.
I will say that was probably the thesis of Right Now Kapow. The lesson we were trying to impart on children is that it's hard to be alive. I think that was pretty consistent. I think if you watch the sketches with that framework, you'll see like, oh yeah, this sketch is sort of about how being alive is hard.
I'm thinking of the tests, the standardized test song from the episode I watched last night, and the teacher was just like, "No, that's not how this works." To when the Saints come marching in.
Yeah, no, we did one of our 5. we didn't have that many reoccurring characters really, but definitely one thing that was really fun was that anytime anyone pitched any kind of sketch in a classroom, we could always put it in that same classroom with Betsy Sidaro playing the teacher that was just despairing at the actions of her children. She was just broken inside. We have one sketch where she like plays a joke on them, but then the real joke is that she laughs so hard she looks like she's gonna have a heart attack. She just starts, she's like laughing and then harder and then harder, and then there's like a vein on her forehead and her eyes bug out. And like that's where we cut.
Oh my god.
Oh, I can imagine in my head. It sounds insane.
Some of these jokes.
Our favorite note we ever got from Disney was a sketch that we then didn't do, where their response was, "We don't think kids will like be into the joke being about the existential despair."
Joke's on you, Disney XD staring practices.
Yeah,
we're all into that. It's after the recession.
Yeah, I know.
Existentialism.
Yeah, we did. I mean, that's
our god.
That's the problem. We made our show in between the recession and the pandemic. They thought things were okay, so they didn't let us do our bleak jokes.
Yeah,
little did any of you know.
We did. Like, oh God, have you
your
seen
entire network is a rerun farm now? You don't know what's gonna happen.
Have you seen? Then we'll go. Just I've never gotten to talk to anyone about this because no one's seen my show. Have you seen? You probably haven't because there's not clips of it. Have you seen the sketch we did where a wrestler runs for mayor?
Oh my gosh, yes.
And then wins. Okay, so we were writing this show in 2015. So our writer pitches it, and literally we're all like, "Oh, this is kind of like Trump. That's funny. Too bad he'll be out of the primaries by the time our show premieres." And then as we're making the show, every like new step, like then it gets boarded, then it gets recorded, then it gets animated, and every step we're like, "Oh shit, this is like exactly like Trump," and like we have a debate sketch and it's going to air in between two of the debates. And we were like, okay, well, he's obviously going to lose. So I guess this is really cool for us that we have this. And we were like, oh, and people are going to go crazy for it because we've got these jokes that seem like we knew about Trump, even though we didn't. And then nobody watched our show. Nobody went crazy. But Trump won and has permanently tarnished one of my favorite sketches. So the whole thing worked out basically as badly as it possibly could have.
At least your show didn't have to deal with the pain of going through all 4 years of it.
Yeah, you're right. The good thing is we didn't have to make 4 seasons.
The good thing was that Right Now Kapow quit while it was ahead.
Yeah.
America did not have the convenience and the luxury.
That's true. I you know what? You're right.
I'm channel quit while it was ahead.
I feel
that entire network took a hint from your sketch and just packed up shop.
We are. So I do know that in a lot of international markets, Right Now Kapow was literally the last thing to air on Disney XD. Wow. Not in America, but every now and then we'd see someone on Twitter be like, and that's it for Disney XD. Last show, Right Now Kapow. So we closed out the network in a lot of markets.
Wow.
How do you feel about that, honestly?
I actually, you know what? That's one of the things I'm proud of. No, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, just a scheduler in a foreign country just working with magic and
No, that I wish. Yeah, no, that I am actually proud of. If you're gonna be on a channel that turns out to not be long for this world, you want to be the last thing. The last thing they run. Yeah, exactly.
A bang. Yeah.
Yeah, a kapow if it were.
Oh my god,
come on, Cash.
We got there.
We got there. We at last.
But yeah, this is obviously like we could go all night, but I have to edit this all on my own. So.
Yeah. We just talked about how this is really hard work for you.
Also, but we're past 2 hours now, so I have done my job.
What's the longest? Is this the longest episode? I want a record.
I think this has been the longest episode so far. Yeah.
No, okay. I think mine was longer.
Well, then let's keep going.
But like no, for the sake of cash, yes, it's because I'm here. I am a gift and a birth.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. This has been great.
It's been a blast, honestly. Just being here to chat about this with you, especially given how underrated a show Right Now Kapow is, and just also somewhat of the ringer you might have been through in some of your other endeavors, just to hear it from your face.
Yeah, no, I mean, the last time I got to really talk about Right Now Kapow was when we did the press, like, for the premiere. Wow. So this is fun for me too.
Yeah. And finally, like in the case that he's listening to us, the stereo's probably listening $20. So hey, we all in.
Oh boy,
you'd be more than $20.
It'd be easier to find people Asterios doesn't owe $20
to. But yeah, this has just been great. And to finally close out another episode of the KashCast, I have been Cash.
I have been Benzie Johnson Jr.
I have been Marly. Is that Marly Halpern-Graser?
Yes.
I'll continue to be, also in my own home.
And we will all see you next time. Just remember to take care, stay safe, wear a mask, and as always, love and peace. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.